You and I were both recently named in New Zealand's Disinformation Dozen. What does it make you think as a lawyer when you hear them using that kind of language about citizens, and particularly when they didn't actually have any evidence of disinformation that had been said by any of the 12? They just said that there had been some. What was that like to you, hearing those words and seeing those articles coming out?
This whole disinformation thing, I mean, disinformation wasn't even a word until this government. And then what does it even mean? What it seems to mean is information that they don't like, or information that doesn't fit with their interpretation of the worldview. But in the past, we never used to call people disinformation sharers just because they had a different view. This whole controlling thing is really concerning. I kind of think it's quite funny in a way too, that they identified 12 of us, how convenient, just like they identified 12 in every other country, and labelled us with these words. And I think I was labelled under the Outdoors and Freedom movement or something. Well, as far as I'm aware, the only time that phrase has been used was on one letter to the government, which was the joint letter that several of us drafted. But the Outdoors and Freedom movement's got no Facebook page or no web page or no anything else. The Outdoors and Freedom Party has, but they didn't say it was the Outdoors and Freedom Party. I honestly think that the disinformation officer is making up disinformation.
It does seem like it's one rule for them, another rule for others, when certain members are allowed to have opposing points of view, certain people are allowed to say their opinions and are allowed to state it as if it's fact, and yet if other people have an opinion, even if they state that it's not fact, this is just their opinion and their view, they are said that it's disinformation. The Media Council's own regulations say that if someone says something in a live stream, then there is a leeway there if it could be inaccurate, because you do not get to check it. However, the media themselves pretend like that those council guidelines do not exist, apparently, when it comes to anyone that has an opposing voice. Do you think that that is the case as well?
Well, look, I had a really interesting experience here in Tauranga with an interview for the candidates by-election, and I was asked a whole series of questions by a journalist, and I answered the questions, and one of his questions was about COVID, and I gave him my answer. And then as we were walking out to his car afterwards, he said, I'm going to have to remove the disinformation. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you gave information that was different than what Ashley Bloomfield says. And I said, well, maybe, but that doesn't mean that my information's wrong. It just means that we've got a different view. I talked to doctors, to international experts, to lawyers from around the world, talked to so many people to get so much information. Why do they think that Ashley's wrong? And by the way, I've seen Ashley's affidavits for court where he doesn't really have much expertise at all. It was really interesting. So he ended up letting me say that vitamin D enhances immunity, but cutting out a whole big part of my answer on COVID. So, this is how they just make it up as they go, really.
It seems like they are absolutely stifling freedom of speech. Jacinda Ardern recently in a Harvard speech did say that she was trying, she said, I don't want to seem like I'm not pro-freedom of speech, however, and it seems...
pro-freedom of speech, yes, she says, yeah. No, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, it is. It's a little bit difficult to keep a straight face with some of the things that they say, isn't it?
What do you think can be done about the media monopoly on information and on what they perceive as disinformation, even if it's just varying opinions and varying experts' opinions? Is there anything legally that can be done in recourse?
Well, the first thing that should happen is that the government should stop funding the media, and if they must give them some money, it shouldn't be conditional on the government story being run and other views being excluded, because that's the opposite of what the media is supposed to do. The media is supposed to be holding the government to account, challenging them, pulling them up on things, not just pro forma supporting them. The other thing, of course, is to get more alternative media, and you're doing a great job there putting out all these perspectives that otherwise people wouldn't hear. And do we not trust our own people to make their own decisions when they see things? That recent story, I think it was on one of the radio shows, and in the background they had a whole lot of things happening where police were beating up people, but the story was about the misinformation that was being live streamed from Parliament. Well, didn't their own cuts prove exactly what we'd been saying in our live streams from Parliament? And by the way, how do you do misinformation in a live stream? It's either happening or it's not. Yeah.
It's that old thing, eh? You can see it with your own eyes, except if you do see it with your own eyes, it's still going to be disinformation if the government disagree.
Yeah, well, we had the same with a court hearing, and we applied for permission to video the whole case so that the public who couldn't get there could watch the whole case. And the Crown objected on the grounds that it would be unfair to let one journalist have access to the whole case because, well, I'm not even sure why, but why they could possibly object to that. But they had some sort of idea that the journalists might just play snippets of the information, but isn't that what the mainstream media do all the time, you know? I mean, the more you think about these things, that's why I love this thing of asking more questions, because every time you ask more questions, it gives you more layers of understanding and it just creates more questions. And you go, hang on a minute, but what does this mean? It doesn't make any sense at all.
I know that for me, the media never reached out and asked me for any comment, which is part of the process they are meant to follow. Did they reach out to you at all?
No, I didn't hear anything from them. I didn't even know about that story until somebody contacted me completely independently about it.
Interesting. All right, well, thank you so much, Sue, and I look forward to hearing you speak at tonight's event as well.
Thanks, Chantelle. It's just a pleasure to talk to you, as it always is. And yeah, just keep doing the great job that you're doing.